Welcome back to the Federal Executive Forum on Federal News Network. We're talking about IT modernization. We're actually talking about priorities. And I'm gonna throw it over to you, Kelsey, over there at Okta. I'm sure you get a lot of different priorities, a lot of different demands, a lot of different requests across departments and agencies. Give us sort of the one that's rising to the top for you all.
Absolutely. Well, I know we've talked about security. That is absolutely a top priority, but I think the other side to that coin is having flexibility and interoperability, right? A lot of what we've heard from panelists today is the need to collaborate. And I think that, again, these last few months have showed that need to collaborate within agencies, with the private sector. How can we actually deliver services that are going to enable all of our workers to achieve the mission? And so what we're hearing and what we're seeing from a number of agencies is, yes, we absolutely need to protect those users, but we want the flexibility to be able to use whatever service is relevant for the moment and for our teams. And so we've certainly heard a lot of different cloud services that are being adopted today. That importance of being able to connect across any service, being able to allow our users to use anything, has been really, really important, and give agencies the choice to say what works best for us to achieve that mission.
Sure. Look, the world is complex. It's a multifaceted. There's a lot of choices, and in order to enable an agency or department, you have to use a lot of those different types of capabilities. Speaking of which, Michael, you talked about a lot of very complex, sophisticated, complicated projects you've got going on over there. Give us sort of what's your number one when you all are sort of looking at the next 6 months. What's at the top of the list?
Yeah, I think, Luke, it's even going to get more complicated. So look, if we had to say that there was one overarching priority for the department from an IT perspective, I'd have to say it's a commitment to enabling a mobile workforce. And Kelsey touched on that. That's users using multiple different platforms to access not only department-wide data, but to engage in collaborations with other entities. As an example, before we would have said we have a collaboration platform, it's WebEx or it's Teams, and everybody in the department must use that. And if you get an invite for some other meeting, well, you got to figure out how to participate in that. And so if for today we're using a different collaboration platform, our users get requests to participate all the time in collaboration sessions. And since now everything is virtual, how do we give people the flexibility to actively participate in those collaboration sessions to ensure that they are safe and that the department is safe, but still giving them that flexibility? That's just one example. I think Kelsey also mentioned, before we would have pushed out PIV or CAC readers to everybody so that they could access data from home. But we had a lot of forward-leaning people and said, look, you can access all of your financial institutions through multi-factor authentication enabled via a mobile device. And we can count on the fact that people have primarily a mobile device. And so how do we leverage that mobile platform for using that for the basis of authentication, enabling that for one-time passwords, doing push notifications for people to ensure that they're safe, for reporting information. So all of that, all I'm trying to get at is we've now seen new ways of doing business through this mobile and remote work environment, and we just got to continuously iterate on that and leverage that in order to make the department more effective in the delivery of diplomacy. And if I had to put one overarching umbrella over it, that's the commitment from the IT organization for the department going forward.
Yes, mobile in a grand experience, if you will. And you're talking about forward leaning and certainly forward deployed at Department of State, and mobile certainly seems like it'd be very key. Fred, how about over at Verizon? Number one sort of issue that as you're receiving all these demands, what's at the top of the list for Verizon these days?
Well, since we're talking mobile, let's talk about everything that's going on with 5G these days. Lots of different approaches to achieving 5G objectives and increasing capacity, providing lower latency experiences. And then just the federal government in general's desire to know more about how to execute in that space. You've got the Department of Defense going down the road with the National Spectrum Consortium, looking at ways to experiment with 5G in multiple different locations, multiple different use cases, from smart warehouses to sharing the spectrum, et cetera. There's several different use cases out there. And for Verizon, we're rolling out our 5G network, domestically here. And, there's plenty of news coverage about that and marketing kind of stuff. But we've also done some interesting things like partnering with AWS for a mobile edge compute capability, where we're moving the data and the processing done by those applications and services to the edge. So you're reducing the latency, the time it takes to achieve that optimal experience. So it really supports the ultra low latency applications, and the use cases for those are they cross the government space. You have things like telemedicine, intelligent logistics, predictive maintenance. And on the predictive maintenance side, not necessarily related to 5G and mobile edge compute, but we're using AI and ML to support our managed service environment, where we accelerate the automation and anticipate failures in our network and our customers' networks.
Absolutely, and demands for that type of capability are wide and far diverse. Number one issue for you as far as priorities at the core?
Yeah, so one of the things that the Sec Army has challenged us within the Army as a whole, he continues to use the slogan, "People first, winning matters," and keeping in context with that slogan, one of the things we're looking at heavy now is how do we ensure that our employees are enabled to be successful or to meet the intent of a 2028 workforce. So with that being said, we are heavily putting a lot of focus, whether that's funding, resources and time, into training our professionals. We talk a lot about many different capabilities, whether it's AI, whether it's machine learning, whether it's zero trust. None of those capabilities can be enabled without having subject matter experts that really understand what the capability does and how to properly implement as well as sustain those capabilities. Because one of the things we often find ourselves inside of the government is doing is we bring a lot of new technology in, but we don't know how to sustain it going forward. So that's what we're working to do now, is to really put more into our workforce to train them up. So we are looking at, we're working hard with Big Army, that's at the headquarters CIO level, with a program called Quantum Leap. So Quantum Leap is more so of a skills-based program that will allow us to get after the skills versus more so from a legacy concept of certifications. Yes, certifications are needed. However, certifications can also be a snapshot in time. So we're now looking at how can we ensure that the skill sets of those individuals are properly enabled and properly exploited, so that when we move towards a lot of these new concepts as well as employ them, our individuals inside of the federal workforce will know how to properly implement them, execute them, maintain them, as well as modernize them when that time comes.
That's outstanding. Just like you have to, keep your infrastructure current, you got to keep your workforce current. Great story on reskilling the workforce and keeping them skilled. All right. Well, we only have a few short moments left, so we're going to ask each of our panel members to give us a sort of a state of the state. What's the future look like? Try to keep it nice and tight here, and give us a sort of a vision of around the corner, over the horizon. What's in the petri dish over there at Okta? Kelsey, we're going to start with you.
Yeah, I think we've talked a lot about things like collaboration and things like security and flexibility. And I think what we're seeing in the future is this: if we set this foundation right and we do this modernization now, what new doors does that open? How can we deliver better citizen-facing experiences? How can we enable, Devers again talked about people first. How can we help everyone be more effective in achieving the mission? But also, everyone here on this call has such an impact on our community and our society today. Can we rethink ways of delivering citizen-facing services as well? And I think really setting that foundation with the modernization that we're discussing today is going to set us up for that long-term success.
Outstanding. Keeping that citizen in mind, that certainly warms my heart. Bridget, how about at ServiceNow? What's it look like over the next couple of years?
Yeah, completely concur with Kelsey, right? I think the focus will be on citizen experience and thinking about, the experiences with government that'll be more consumer-like. So there's no more tolerance really from citizens around antiquated experiences. Secondly, those experiences I believe will be customized and tailored as a result of agencies' investments in AI. We're driving towards that 21st century government. We're driving towards a digital strategy and serving customers the way that they want to be served. So being able to take data and dynamically serve up a better experience through AI is going to be critical in the future.
It's all about delivering on the promise to the farmer, to the small business owner, to the servicemen and women, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm glad to see that the foundation is being laid down and we're all really keeping our focus on that. Fred, you talked about 5G. What's that going to look like in a couple of years? Is 5G just going to be sort of, like air and it's just going to be there completely full footprint out there across the country?
Well, I think 5G is going to be a little bit different. The experience for folks who are in really dense areas will experience a more rich experience, and the folks who are out in the urban areas, it'll be better than it is today, but not the ultra rich, ultra low latent experience that you're going to get in cities. I did want to say that the Social Security Administration talks about preparing for the citizen of the future, and we're helping them with something called the Next Generation Telephony Platform. But I don't think it's just about telephony. But I do think that you need a very rich and robust network. But that rich and robust network, in my future vision, is about any user, any device, any location having access to the services and the tools that they need to do their job. And it's going to come with a myriad of newer technologies, from zero trust and software-defined perimeters. Ultimately, quantum computing is going to play a role in all of that. But in the end, it's going to improve the citizen experience. It's going to improve the federal government's ability to operate and do their mission. And on the DoD side, it's going to make warfighters more lethal and more efficient. For me, that's the end state.
And that's an outstanding sort of story there, and you're laying down this capability that's going to enable all these modern platforms to really realize their full capability in this new sort of, I'll call it 5G world, but it's really about low latency, sort of real time type capability, which is what every customer demands, right? Every customer expects that at this point, and they deserve to have that, quite frankly. How about at the U.S. Army Corps? What's it look like over the next couple of years? As you sort of consolidate your data centers, get all that capability together that you've been describing, what does that experience look like for those that are in the core ecosystem?
And so we're trying to operate in what we call the new now, because we call it the new now because things will always change. There's nothing consistent anymore with how we operate. So when we look at the core and as we build our budgets to reflect the same over the course of the next 2 years, from an IT perspective, it may not be from a policy and program perspective, but from an IT aspect, going into the office should be a choice versus a necessary requirement. And what we mean by that is that we will have the proper IT capabilities and resources to enable our users to operate in any fashion that they choose to. So that's from a remote standpoint, wherever they may be, whether they're in Montana, whether they're in Afghanistan, wherever in the country they are, going into the office will be your choice, but it won't necessarily be a mandatory requirement because you will have the ability to operate wherever you are, and we're building our budgets to ensure we can acquire the right capabilities and ensure that we have the right agility in how we enable our services for our end users.
I think that's fantastic. I love the notion of it'll be a choice, and the choice will be theirs, and they know that if they stay remote, that full capability will be available to them, so that they don't have to go to the office, because the only place they can do X, Y, and Z would be in the office, which is great to hear that. Mike, you talked a lot about sort of that remote workforce, if you will, that remote environment, sort of taking these business applications and making them a first port in a mobile environment. Fast forward 2 years, what does that look like? If I'm a new Foreign Service officer just coming into the State Department, what can I expect at that point?
Yeah, I'd like to piggyback, I think, on what Devarius noted, which is, enabling the workforce to work from wherever they choose. And so that's got to be one of the things that the IT IT organization takes to heart. And that, listen, that has profound effects beyond information technology. That has effects on how we're able to recruit and retain the workforce. We have people that work in really high cost of living areas that, you know, that struggle and would like to move to lower cost of living. And we should be able to enable that movement of the workforce. The workforce obviously has, you know, commitments at home with kids being out of school, but they might have life emergencies that come on, you know, 2 years from now. So how do we keep the workforce engaged as they have these issues that evolve throughout the course of their life? We paid a lot of money and spent a lot of time to get really great talent into the organization. And we need to from an information technology perspective, provide a collaborative IT environment that allows them to stay connected to the Department of State mission from wherever they choose to operate. So that's got to be one of the driving forces. So from my perspective, what I see moving forward is a much more open architecture that allows people to collaborate from the device of their choice, from the location of their choice, but still maintain themselves being 100% ingrained in the mission and focus and the functions of the department.
And really connected to that ecosystem. And I would tell you that, you know, you're really getting into this work-life balance issue. And all of a sudden now you can open up your aperture and expand across the entire AOR to look at the different kind of a workforce and capability to allow the State Department to be everything it can be. I'm really pleased to hear this. Lou, how about at Department of Labor? If you fast forward, you all have a lot of activity going on over there right now. What's that look like in the next couple of years? Where do you think you are on that journey? Got everything done, all wrapped up, put a bow on it? What are you thinking?
No, there's a lot to do. I think for labor, it's the continue look forward to take advantage of our emerging technologies and put them to the best use to provide the data and the systems that the citizens need. Our CIO's tenure began with the labor about 4 years ago, and he came in one day shaking his head and said, "My daughter doesn't want to come to take your kid to work day because we don't have wireless." And he challenged us to be the best in federal service. And part of that's going to be using this emerging technology to take our data, our systems, and make them available to the end users, which is in the end, the American citizen. With this COVID pandemic that's going on, two of our sites are getting huge hits, benefits.gov and disaster.gov. These are the things that drive us every day. We don't go into work each day for the sake of doing technology, but using that technology to make that data and those systems available to who really needs them.
Amen. And I've heard so many times in this discussion about the citizen service and again, fulfilling that promise to the citizens. So I really do appreciate it. Thank all of you for taking the time today and from your busy schedules to join us for this program. I'd also like to thank the sponsors for supporting us on this show. I'd like to thank the good people here at Federal News Network that make our program so successful and enjoyable. And most of all, I'd like to thank the listening audience out there that tune in every month. You've been listening to the Federal Executive Forum, part of Federal News Network.